This year, I challenged our WBA leadership to dare to make an impact, and I am excited to report we exceeded the challenge. We broke WBA records with program revenue and annual dinner proceeds, which allow us to put on stellar programming for the DC legal community and sustain the WBA. Oh, and did I mention this is a sold-out event? Our amicus committee also had a banner year. Unlike past years, where we may have received one or no requests, this year we've received 19 amicus requests and signed on to 17 briefs. During last year's dinner, I announced that I would focus on 7 initiatives: Women in Finance, Women of Color Task Force, More Than an Attorney, Future Leaders, Advocacy, Wellness, and a CLE trip abroad. Unlike political campaigns, I kept my promise, and we achieved all the goals of the 7 initiatives. But in the interest of time, I will provide key highlights for 3 of them. The Advocacy Initiative was inspired by the Kalief Browder story and was designed to provide exposure and resources on issues that affect women and children. 16-year-old Kalief was wrongly accused of and arrested for stealing a backpack. He was sent to Rikers Island Jail for 3 years, with 2 years in solitary confinement, because his family could not afford $900 bail. Although Kalief was ultimately released after 3 years for lack of evidence, the damage was already done. Plagued with horrific trauma from his jail time, Kalief committed suicide 2 years after his release. In January of this year, 9 years after his death, New York City settled with Kalief's family for $3.3 million. This senseless tragedy demonstrates the necessity for attorneys and organizations to become involved and provide a voice for the voiceless. This is exactly what the WBA did when we took up the charge and joined others in challenging the administration's decision to separate more than 2,700 children from their parents or other adults at the southern border. Despite a federal court order requiring the government to reunite these children with their families, not all the families have been reunited. In January, the Office of Inspector General for the Department of Health and Human Services revealed that potentially thousands more separated families were unaccounted for because the government lacked an effective tracking system. Recent court documents filed by the government indicate that it may take up to 2 years to identify potentially thousands of immigrant children who were separated from their families. Family unity is at the core of the mission of the Women's Bar Association. Since 1917, some of the key goals of the WBA have been maintaining the honor and integrity of the legal profession, promoting the administration of justice, and advancing and protecting the interests of women lawyers. Nothing can be more seminal to these goals than supporting family unity, which is a fundamental legal and human right. Family unity is the basis upon which society stands, upon which the legal system is built. It allows for ordered society and healthy communities, and it also supports the health and education of future generations. In keeping with our principles, at the 2018 Stars of the Bar event, the WBA honored grassroots organization leaders from IUTA, CARE Coalition, Lawyer Moms of America, and KIND, who are leading the way in the current fight against immigration policies and enforcement that separate families. In addition, the organization released its family unity issue statement arguing for non-separation policies and the reuniting impacted families. Our Immigration Law Forum and Legal Advocacy Committee hosted a program addressing the immigration crisis, and we ended our immigration awareness campaign with the WBA Week of Service, during which our members volunteered with nonprofit immigration organizations. The WBA supports organizations that are on the front lines working hard to reunite families and providing much needed legal representation and social services to women and children. If you are up for the challenge and would like to dare to make an impact, contact the WB office to find out ways in which you could provide assistance. Daring to make an impact is not always easy, particularly in the face of controversy. In addition to our immigration work, the WBA also addressed the potential threat to Roe v. Wade and women's reproductive rights. As part of our As part of our fight for women's reproductive rights, we launched the Our Body, Our Voices campaign, which stemmed from the announcement of the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh. The WBA firmly believes that women have a right to control their own bodies. During our campaign, I was asked, why is the WBA taking a position on Kavanaugh's nomination and advocating to uphold Roe? My response was that it's in our DNA to stand up for women and to be an advocate on issues that negatively impact us. The WBA has consistently been steadfast in fighting for women's rights and equality. This is still true today. Women's rights are under attack, as we have seen recently in the state of Alabama, Georgia, and other states. Some may question whether we should opine on issues that are perceived to be political or controversial in nature. But as I stated in my remarks last year, who dares nothing need hope for nothing. We will remain unwavering and resolute, even when it's unpopular. Under our Future Leaders Initiative, the co-chairs hosted the WBA's Mock Trial Academy. 30 children ages 8 to 13 participated in this sold-out workshop. You hear the theme, right? Sold out? The children received an overview of the purpose and necessity of laws before learning the facts of State of Oz versus Dorothy Gale on the charges of murder and theft. Guided by experienced litigators, the children crafted opening statements, direct and cross-examination of 6 witnesses, and closing arguments, and then participated in their own mock trial before a judge and jury, not of their peers, but of their parents. We can only hope that this group of diverse, bright, and articulate children will continue to pursue their legal education and someday join our WBA ranks. Finally, one of our major initiatives this year involved increasing the number of women of color partners and senior level positions in corporate law departments in the DC area. To that end, the WBA created the Women of Color Task Force. To shed some light on the problem, I need the audience help. Could you all take out your cell phones and let me test your knowledge? Follow the instructions on the screen. You can text to Women's Bar 200 to 22333 to join the polling session. You have your phones out? Okay. First question. According to the NALP 2018 report on diversity in U.S. law firms, Hispanic women account for what percentage of partners at major U.S. law firms? Is it A, 3.9%, B, 0.77%, or C, 1.25%? Okay. The correct answer is B, 0.77%. Second question. Asian women account for what percentage of partners at major U.S. law firms? Is it 4.25%, B, 1.38%, or C, 0.32%? Okay, I have a very smart crowd. The answer is B, 1.38%. Third question, African American women account for what percentage of partners at major U.S. law firms? Is it A, 0.68%, B, 1.27%, or C, 4.45%? The correct answer is A, 0.68%. Women of color account for 3.19%, white women 20.17%, men of color 5.94%, and white men 70.7% of partners at major U.S. law firms. Studies show that minority women continue to be significantly underrepresented, with African American women being the most dramatically underrepresented group at the partnership level. Final question. According to MCCA's 19th annual General Counsel survey, women of color account for what percentage of general counsels at Fortune 500 companies? Is it A, 7%, B, 4%, or C, 6%? Actually, the numbers here are a little bit better. The answer is C, 6%. These numbers are jarring and demonstrate the need to be laser focused on moving the needle forward for women of color in the legal profession. To tackle these dismal numbers, the task force held monthly meetings focused on developing best practices and a meaningful metrics to track diversity and inclusion efforts. The committee developed possible solutions which included developing the Dovey-Roundtree Rule, named after Dovey Johnson Roundtree, the first African-American woman to become a member of the WBA. The rule requires for each vacancy in leadership roles, participating firms and corporations will include women of color candidates, the greater number of at least 2 women of color, or 20% of the eligible candidates. The WBA strongly encourages law firms, our partners here today, and legal departments in the DC area to adopt the Roundtree Rule. You will find the complete rule in your program. In addition to creating the Roundtree Rule and other solutions, the task force also held 2 events where the rooms were filled to capacity. You hear that theme. We had to tell folks, it's sold out. And they're like, oh, but can we register 6 people? No, it's sold out. Okay, how about 3? No, it's completely sold out. But they just showed up anyway, and we tried to accommodate. This shows that there is a great need, and people are interested in doing what they can to make senior positions at firms and corporations more diverse. We are now looking to partner with 10 firms and corporations to pilot the implementation of the Roundtree Rule. If you're interested in learning more about the program, contact the WBA office or visit our website. When women of color succeed in law firms and corporate law departments, our profession succeeds. History has taught us that through collaboration, commitment, and accountability, we all win. As we transition into a new bar year, I charge you to continue to dare and be targeted and explicit and purposeful in addressing the advancement of women of color. The numbers are embarrassing, and as a profession, we can do better. Dare and stand up for women's rights. It's not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is a human rights issue. Women have a right to control their own bodies. Dare and fight for family reunification because it's the humane thing to do. Be the voice for the voiceless and continue to stand up and be heard. And as the old saying goes, it's impossible to win the race unless you venture to run. Impossible to win the victory unless you dare to battle. So let's continue to make an impact. I dare you.
So it's fitting that we celebrate the WBAF and its work on behalf of the disadvantaged and all of these amazing organizations that have received grants tonight. Let their example inspire you to make a difference, just as they do.
We're a new grantee to the Women's Bar Association Foundation, which is to us really meaningful. I think it's a testament to how important the work is that we're doing specifically for survivors here in the district.
We are here today to award a total of $70,000 to 11 legal services providers who lose themselves in helping women and girls in DC.
The reason I do what I do is because I am a child of immigrants and I have seen firsthand how the immigration system affects people.
I would do my job for free. I think it's great. I think it's the best job ever. And again, like getting to work with these incredible, powerful women who kind of build their lives back up. It's just a great privilege.
The 2019 Grantee Awards are upon us, and the WBA Foundation is pleased once again to provide support to volunteer lawyers and deserving nonprofits as they generously serve the legal and related needs of women and girls in the DC metropolitan community. At the WBA Foundation, we realize that nonprofit funding is a vital part of your everyday efforts, and we thank you for your continuous work in helping the DC metropolitan community be a better place for women and girls.
I founded DC Kin Care Alliance to help relatives who care for children in DC when their parents are not able to do so. They work hard every day to care for these children that have no one else to look after them. The WBA Foundation is really important to DC Kin Care Alliance. We're a small, newer organization, and every bit of help really makes us be able to do our work every day.
So the Human Trafficking Legal Center is a nonprofit based in Washington, D.C., but we work across the country. We train pro bono lawyers to handle human trafficking cases. And by cases, I mean immigration cases, victim witness representation in criminal cases, and also civil cases on behalf of trafficking victims in the federal courts. I've had clients walk into my office on the first day when we meet, and they can't look at me, and they can't look at the other lawyers. They stare at the floor, they stare at the table. They're so unbelievably traumatized. And then fast forward through the case, through the civil case, through the filing, and you watch them as they emerge on the other side, and they are confident. It's like they're 3 feet taller. They have grown so much. They own their lives. They've really reasserted themselves and reasserted their power. And so that's what makes it possible for me to do this work. It's watching this transformation from someone so traumatized, so damaged, so harmed, into people who are literally starting their own NGOs to help other survivors, right? It doesn't get better than that.
So the Amara Legal Center provides legal services to individuals who have been harmed through their involvement in commercial sex. Commonly, that's been victims of human trafficking and sex workers. Having been the daughter of immigrant parents, I was the first generation American, and as a result, I saw my parents' rights violated. One time we got pulled over, the car was searched, we were put in handcuffs, my mom made forced to lie on the ground, and I think it was through experiences like that that I've always wanted to champion the little guy and fight for the underdog, and As a result, I love to fight for the marginalized and the vulnerable and provide a voice for them.
Our company, African Communities Together, was established in 2012 by our executive director, Amaha Kaza, and it was founded to assist African immigrants to fight for civil rights and to help them to engage civically and to improve lives. I enjoy helping immigrants. I am an immigrant myself, so I enjoy seeing successful outcomes with helping African immigrants. Helping immigrants from a culturally competent perspective. Because most African immigrants are not getting that service, so I'm happy to be part of this organization who's helping them assist with the culturally competent immigration services.
So Legal Counsel for the Elderly has been around for 43 years, and the majority of our clients, at least a full 70%, are women. And so it's wonderful that WBAF provides service and support so that we can serve our clientele.
So the DC Volunteer Lawyers Project was started by 3 amazing attorneys who had taken some time off 10 years ago from the full-time practice of law. During that time, they wanted to do pro bono work, and they found out as they tried to do it that there weren't good resources in DC for unaffiliated lawyers who are not associated with another employer like a law firm. So they founded this organization, DC Volunteer Lawyers Project, so that they could provide that support for volunteer lawyers who wanted to do pro bono work. I get up every morning and do what I do because 2 things. One is I love serving the clients that we serve. My job is half serving survivors of domestic violence and half serving the best interests of at-risk children in DC. And I get a lot of satisfaction from my clients. I think that I benefit more from representing them than they do sometimes.
Support of the WBAF is important to us because it allows us to continue to expand our ability to serve domestic violence victims.
The Women's Bar Association Foundation is critical to us. They were one of our very first funders almost 5 years ago when we started the organization. They get the work that we're doing, and all of their members get exactly the kind of work that we are doing, trying to keep working mothers in their jobs and make balancing work and family manageable.
Booker T. Washington once said, "Those who are happiest are those who do the most for others." That's everyone in this room. So to the grantees, congratulations, and thank you for making yourselves and others happy through your good work. Thank you for coming. Have a good evening. As you saw in the clip, sex trafficking victims, domestic violence victims, immigrant women, non-parent caregivers, and elderly women have benefited from your generosity and the work of the Women's Bar Association Foundation. The foundation has awarded over $750,000 in grants since we were founded in 1981, and we are working diligently to exceed $1 million. After we received the generous bequest from one of our founders, Suzanne Richards, we began working on estate planning programs. Suzanne Richards' gift allowed us to increase the amount of grants every year. As good stewards of our inheritance from Suzanne Richards, we are earnestly analyzing different programs to help women and girls in DC that will be funded by her bequest. Your donations also fund the Founders Fellowship, which supports a local law student working for a nonprofit that supports the foundation's mission. The fellowship rotates among 6 DC law schools. And since the establishment of this fellowship in 2006, the foundation has awarded $75,000 to local law students. None of these exceptional programs would be possible without your generous donations. Might I remind you that you can make a donation tonight at www.domore24.org, and under the Donate tab, click Organizations and type in Women's Bar Association Foundation of DC. And Yolanda, we are breaking records. Thank you for your donation. We have already exceeded our donations from last year. We are at $9,745. Thank you for your generosity, but I know we can get to 10,000. I know that if everyone in here donated another $10, we could get to 10,000 and help more women and girls in DC. The foundation does not have members, so in addition to your generosity, these programs would not be possible without our outstanding Board of Directors, excuse me. Please join me in thanking our very small board for their dedication. Will the Women's Bar Association Foundation Board of Directors please stand and be recognized? Thank you, Board of Directors. This is a dedicated board. They believe in our mission and work tirelessly to help women and girls in DC. On behalf of the Women's Bar Association Foundation and the many women and girls who have benefited from your kindness, I thank you. And in the words of Sally Koch, great opportunities to help others seldom come, but small ones surround us every day. We ask you to take advantage of this small opportunity to make a gift tonight to the Women's Bar Association Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. I'm all about breaking records. Last fall, WBA's award committee gathered to consider recipients for the Woman Lawyer of the Year award. It's no small task to review and select deserving candidates for this honor. I'd like to ask the members of the committee to stand and be recognized. Sonia Murphy, WBA past president and committee chair. WBA President Suzanne Korowitz and Carrie Castellini, past president, sorry. WBA Foundation board member Katie White, and 2017 and 2018 Women Lawyer of the Year, Anna Reeves, and the Honorable Blackburn Rigsby, who unfortunately could not be here this evening. It is now my pleasure to tell you about our 2019 Woman Lawyer of the Year, Ms. Lori Robinson Hayden, Senior Vice President and Assistant General Counsel at CBS Corporation and the founder and CEO of Corporate Counsel Women of Color. Ms. Robinson Hayden created Corporate Counsel Women of Color, or as we like to call it, CCWC, in 2004 to advance the women of color attorneys and to foster diversity in the legal profession. The nonprofit professional organization has grown from 30 members to over 4,000 members within a 15-year period. She develops programming for diverse professional lawyers, including CCWC's annual Career Strategies Conferences, and CCWC's International Career Strategies Symposiums. I can personally attest that her events are sold out months in advance, and folks clamor to get these tickets. If you've never been to one, you definitely should plan on joining it, but you can't do it this September because it's sold out in February. Please give a round of applause for Ms. Lori Robinson Hayden.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me here tonight before you. I'm extremely honored to be receiving the Women Bar Association Woman of the Year Award. And if you hear a little baby crying in the background, that's my son, Baby David, upstairs cheering his mom on. Thank you, Baby David. Just so you know, on Saturdays, I bring Baby David here to the museum where he runs from the left to the right. So when he came in the room today, he was familiar with the setting. So he started and he was ready to run, but then he fell. So my husband was kind enough to take him upstairs. So thank you so much. I want to thank the Women Bar Association committee for selecting to honor me tonight. I know Yolanda and so many on the team and the board, they've been working so hard to put this event together. And as she said, it is sold out. So you know what that means? Everyone who's anyone in the law was here tonight. So when you go to work tomorrow, say, you weren't at the event last night. Everyone who's anyone in the law was there. When I think about this tremendous honor, it's so meaningful to me. And I'm grateful for the recognition. Many people don't know, but I started my career in New York City, where I worked for 16 years. And then I've been with CBS for the majority of my career. And I got married in 2013. And my husband lives here in Maryland. And he told me, I'm not a New York guy, so if we're going to get married, you have to move to Maryland. So I went to my company and I asked them if I could move to the Maryland, D.C. area, and CBS being so supportive of me, they said yes. Many people also don't know it was easy for me to move to Maryland because I was born and raised right here in the Washington, D.C. area. I was raised in Prince George's County, Maryland. Thank you. Prince George's County, Maryland. And I have to share my story and my background because this is what brings me here today through what we've been doing with Corporate Council Women of Color. Being raised in the Washington, D.C. area in Prince George's County, my community was always predominantly African American. I was never the minority. I never knew what it felt like to be the minority. And when I went to college, I went to North Carolina Central University, where both of my parents met, attended, and graduated. And being at a historical black college and university, again, I've never, ever been a minority before. I had the privilege to go to Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. IU! And I had a great experience there. When I started my career in New York City at law firms in 1998, it was a bit of a challenge for me because in those settings, though they gave me my start, and I'm grateful for those starts, in 1998, they didn't have much diversity. So that was the first time I really felt like a minority, and I felt isolated. I didn't feel like I had access to mentors. I didn't feel like I was connected with those rainmakers who could give me the type of work that I needed to get enough billable hours and the right type of work that would get me in front of the courthouse and the judge. And it just didn't feel right to me. I really growing up in the Washington, D.C. area and knowing the melting pot that this area is, I couldn't imagine that legal teams were coming up with strategies without diverse people sitting around the table to get the best result for their client. So from those early days in New York City, which I think they were difficult and challenging, my mother couldn't be here today, but she was always my mentor and my encourager. And she always told me, Lori, you have to be your own advocate. You're a lawyer now. If you can't advocate for yourself, how can you advocate for your client? You need to advocate for yourself when it comes to your compensation. You need to advocate for yourself when it comes to the type of client assignments that you want. So she was always there to motivate me to have a voice, and I thank her for that. And it was funny because a couple of years ago, we were talking about New York. And I said, New York is really a tough place. And I said, I thank you for encouraging me. And she said, I don't know how you made it there. I would have left years ago. So the advice of mothers. But what we did with Corporate Counsel Women of Color in 2004, we took a handful of women of color who also felt isolated in corporate structures, and we were able to come together. And in that, it was so empowering because we realized that we were not alone. We realized that we all had these common interests, that we all had the desire to get high visibility assignments. We all had the desire to connect with that right mentor and the right sponsor and to be a part of the succession plan and to have some type of pay equity. And that desire is very here today and present. And I think I speak for everyone in this room when I say that when we think about our legal profession, we know we have a long way to go. But as I look back 16 years of doing Corporate Counsel Women of Color and focusing on diversity and inclusion in the law, I've come to realize that it really takes everyone. We need women of color. We need white women. We need white men. Everybody in the room. We all have to take a part of the rowboat and pull together. You know, everyone's talking about unconscious bias. We have to be the bias interrupters. When you see things going on in your workplace and they're not right and they're not fair, you have to be an advocate. That's what you went to law school for. If I see you being mistreated, I have to speak up and I have to say, that's not right. Don't treat her like that. And if I have a voice, and if you have a voice, and if you have a voice, guess what? We will see numbers improve. We will see pay equity, or we'll start moving in some direction. So, you know, I thank you all again for honoring me today. I know that I still have work to do, and this award just gives me the passion and the fire to keep going, and I hope that I have your support as we continue on this journey. I thank my husband, David Hayden. I thank little baby David, who gets upset when I'm on the computer too long doing CCWC, and he comes and starts pushing my knees away from the computer. I thank CBS and my colleague Adrian Proctor, who came here today. And I thank all of our law firm friends and sponsors and corporations who have made a beautiful evening like this possible. Thank you again for your support. I look forward to partnering with all of you as we continue to strive to make this legal profession all that it can be. Thank you.
Isn't she phenomenal? Let's give another round of applause. At this time, I would like for us to take a moment to honor our WBA sisters who passed away this year. Thank you, ladies, for your service. You are the wind beneath our wings. As my last act as WBA president, I have the distinct pleasure of acknowledging the leaders who will continue to advance this organization and the women in it. We recently had elections for the 2019-2020 Board of Directors. Will the ladies stand and be recognized? You can find a list of next year's board in our event program. It's a pleasure and a privilege to serve with these women, and I wish you well in the next bar year. I'd like to invite Jill Dash to the podium. Jill is the Vice President in Strategic Engagement at American Constitution Society. Jill began her service with the WBA working at this annual dinner, chairing the dinner for 2 years. She has organized numerous WBA programs, including How to Become a Judge and Presidential Appointments Panel. She has been serving on the WBA board since 2006 and has held every position on our board, first as secretary, then treasurer, and then a longtime director before being nominated to become the president-elect. On June 1st, Jill will take over as WBA president. I have truly enjoyed working with you. We fight like sisters. I tell her all the time she's my sister. And I am excited to see what you have in store for next bar year. I will now pass the gavel of leadership with all of its privileges and responsibilities that the office of the president holds.
Always have to start by adjusting the mic down a little bit. Thank you so much, Yolanda. Before I get started, I want to first add my congratulations to our Woman Lawyer of the Year, Lori Robinson Hayden. Not only have you set the bar so high for the rest of us, but you, without knowing it, you will see that you actually hit all of the themes that I am going for in the next year. So we welcome you to the WBA, and we're not going to let you go. And by the way, it sounds like your mom would be a wonderful member of the WBA, so we will take her. I, of course, have to say a special thank you to Yolanda, who has made it very hard to fill her sparkly shoes. Yolanda poured her heart and soul into this organization over the last year, and in fact, over the last several years. She challenged this room to dare to make an impact, and that she certainly has done. So on behalf of the WBA and all the folks in this room and beyond, we thank you for your service. Please join me in thanking Yolanda. Okay, Eliana, you get that plaque now, and the crystal gavel stays with me, honey. Before I go on, I also want to take a moment to thank my family, particularly my husband, Jerome, and my daughter, Maya, my cousin, Megan, who came here tonight to be with me. Really appreciate your love and support. I want to thank my work family from the American Constitution Society for being here and always being my cheerleaders. I really appreciate you being here as well. And hopefully none of those people have talked to the colleagues and families of any of the past presidents. I will see you next year, loved ones. You know, when I wrote my remarks, I actually said it feels rather surreal to be standing here anticipating this moment, but that's not really right. It feels completely surreal to be standing here. The first time I encountered the WBA was as a summer associate in 1999 attending this dinner. And there was not a thought in my mind that I would find myself up here looking forward to a term as the WBA president. I was so inspired, though, and encouraged by the women that I saw on the stage. I knew right away that I wanted to be a part of this organization. And so here I find myself on stage with the excitement of looking forward to the next year. And by the way, the pressure of not spilling on yourself in front of 600 people. So far, so good. I have a few minutes to go. I have found the WBA to be an organization that lifts up new leaders and gives them a platform that works together to agitate for needed change. But more than anything, I have found the WBA to be a sisterhood. When I watch the army of people, the past presidents, the co-chairs, the board members that Yolanda brought up earlier in the evening, I looked at that group of women and I thought, these are the people who raised me up in my legal career. I am standing here today because of the love and support of what the WBA has given me. And I invite all of you to join us in that effort. When I didn't know what to do about childcare when I was newly pregnant, I turned to my WBA colleagues. For every job search that I have conducted, I turned to my WBA colleagues for their unvarnished advice. And I could always count on my WBA colleagues to hold up for me the mirror of my best and strongest self. I'm so excited to take this organization into its next year. You know, each year the president chooses a theme to work with. Obviously, everyone now knows about Dare to Make an Impact. But the truth is, the underlying theme is, we're not quite there yet. We're getting there, but we have a lot of work to do. According to the ABA Commission on Women in the Profession, women make up 50% of law school classes, which is fabulous. But something happens on their path, because then they only make up 35% of law school deans, 30% of Fortune 500 general counsels, and 19% of equity partners in private practice. They make up about 1/3 of the federal bench, and over the last 3 years have only been 22% of the nominees. And despite the fanfare of the Year of the Woman, they make up 25% of Congress. That's pretty good, but we can do a lot better. And of course, if you look at the numbers for women of color, they're much worse than that. So my theme for the next year is building community, building power. We have a lot of work to do, but if we put our energies into it collectively, with determination and creativity, we will get there. Throughout the year, we'll be thinking of the spaces where women lack representation. We'll be talking about women in a variety of leadership roles, in law firms, in boardrooms, in legislatures, in government agencies, in law schools, in nonprofits, and the judiciary, and of course, in the broader community. Because as Justice Ginsburg once said, women belong in all of the places where decisions are being made. So we have a lot of work to do. On June 26th, we'll be building community by co-sponsoring a program with She Should Run. This is an organization that has a mission of having 250,000 women run by the year 2030. In July, we'll be talking about the dearth of women arguing before the Supreme Court, because we can do better there too. And I am honored to lead our efforts to kick off the celebration of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment giving women the right to vote. We often extol the vision of our WBA founders by talking about the fact that this organization was built in 1917 before women had the right to vote. But of course, we all stand on the shoulders of the women who marched, organized, and died so that we could have that right to vote and a voice in governance in this country. We fought for the right to vote, and we intend to use it. So on the weekend of July 19th, mark your calendars, a WBA delegation will visit Seneca Falls, New York, where the Women's Rights National Historical Park is hosting its Convention Days celebration. We will attend events including living history programs featuring folks like Lucretia Mott, Frederick Douglass, and Sojourner Truth. And of course, we will check in on some Finger Lakes wineries because we know how to do this right. We're booking that trip until this Friday. Now I feel like Crazy Eddie. We're booking the trip until this Friday, and we really hope that you will consider joining us, whether you are brand new to this organization or whether you've been here for 20, 30, or more years. Please join us on that trip. We find it's going to be very eye-opening as we take a look back before we move forward. And the last thing I want to say here is that we know that lawyers, especially women lawyers, are really busy people, that there are a lot of demands on your time. But I hope that if you're not already an active member of the Women's Bar Association, that you will join us. If something you heard or saw here tonight touched you, inspired you, or disturbed you, we need your energy. That's true of the women in this room, and it's also true of the men, because we need men as allies too. That's how we make change. We've made a lot of progress since I first sat in this room in 1999, but there is a lot left to do. Please help to join our community so that we can build real power and so that we can create a legal profession and a world that is diverse, equal, and fair for every man and every woman. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you all for coming tonight. We're done.
Will the Foundation Board meet at the step and repeat for a picture? Members of the Foundation Board, please meet at the step and repeat.